Welcome back. We're starting a little late tonight, but hopefully we'll catch up. This is the Indie Spotlight, and we're here tonight. We're going to talk about Noah Baumbach's Greenberg. Hello, my name is Jonathan Betzler, and as you may, if you've been following us for the last month or so, you know that we sort of ran out of 2014 indies to talk about that we really felt passionate about. Each week, one of us recommends an indie, a little scene, a lesser scene indie, shall we say, that doesn't get talked about as much, that maybe should be, and sometimes we disagree. But regardless, so we went back 5 years to indies from 2010, and we started examining those, some of which last time was The Joneses. The time for that was a film called Rabbit Hole. And tonight's film has some big stars in it too, just like Rabbit Hole. Tonight's film is from Noah Baumbach. It's called Greenberg. Before we get to that, let me introduce my co-host. Let's start with the handsome young man from Charlotte, North Carolina, Dave Joseph.
How you doing?
Hey, Dave.
I'm doing well, and I'm pumped about another Noah Baumbach film. So.
How are you?
What do you mean by another? Dare I ask?
I mean, he puts them out there, doesn't he? He's like our Woody Allen, huh?
Not really at all. J Money, what are you? How are you tonight?
I'm just swell. I'm 3 martinis in. So
indie magic.
Indie magic time.
So, for those of you that have been paying attention to our Facebook page, you may remember the trivia question was the little tidbit of trivia was that what film, what indie director conceived a movie with his wife, and she also co-stars, and then he would go on to leave his wife for the lead actress of the film. And that's the little personal drama that went on behind the scenes of this film, Greenberg. Noah Baumbach married to Jennifer Jason Leigh, who he co-conceived this story with, and he left her for Greta Gerwig, and he's currently with Greta Gerwig. Do you guys have any thoughts and comments about that little that little tryst?
I think it's amazing that I had absolutely no idea that any of that had ever happened. So wow, okay.
So, but I mean, like, how does that make you feel about Mr. Baumbach himself?
I don't like it. I don't like that. It's not cool.
So you wouldn't leave your wife for Greta Gerwig?
Well, I mean, my wife does not exist. So I might leave her.
Jay Money, do you have anything to add to that?
I guess what I would say is that it actually kind of seems fitting for the movie in general for this to have happened behind the scenes. It's
a tale as old as time. And speaking of a tale as old as time, our little summary here is Robert Greenberg is a New Yorker with significant anxiety issues who agrees to dog sit at his brother's very large house in Los Angeles to get away from it all. During that time, he half-heartedly tries to reconnect with old friends and lovers, but winds up spending most of his time with his brother's much younger nanny. So I'm the one that's recommended this film to these guys, and overall, I have a significant issue with it that I'll get to later on. But I mean, overall, I really enjoyed it and enjoyed watching it again for this broadcast. I think it's an effective look into a mental illness that is much more common than a lot of the ones we see portrayed on screen. His level of anxiety feels, more relatable to people that we know, and I think that made the film more palatable to me. It's also character-driven, which is right in my wheelhouse. I think it's the best performance of Ben Stiller's career, and like I said, there's some other things I like about it, but there's one major thing that kept me from really feeling good about this film and putting it behind Rabbit Hole and the Joneses. I like this film. I don't love this film, and there's a reason why that we'll get to later on. Before we do, let's talk to these guys. Who's first? All right, Jay Money, you get to go first. Greenberg.
All right, I'm going to echo a lot of things you just said and come to a different conclusion. I agree with a lot of things. Like, I agree with the performance levels on this, and I agree with how it's probably Ben Stiller's best performance and how he made it much more relatable just in general. But I am so fucking tired of watching this movie. I'm just really tired of this movie.
Does that suggest that you've watched it several times?
Not this movie specifically, but this kind of movie, which I feel like I've seen over and over and over again.
Do you have examples of such?
I don't have examples of such. I just feel like it's a movie where it's about a guy
It felt
He has
retread.
some neurotic issues. He's in his middle-aged area, and he's trying to figure out who he is. And I just feel like it's a theme that comes up a lot more often than I'm just tired of seeing it. Otherwise, though, beyond my own personal gripes about this, it's a pretty solid film.
Okay, interesting. Without specifics, I find it hard to respond to that. But
I understand.
I'm going to think about that a little bit.
I mean, you could say that everything Noah Baumbach has done is pretty much in the same camp, but I'm not going to call it.
He has his own style, but I mean, I feel like The Squid and the Whale, for example, is fairly different and a lot more personal, quite frankly.
No, and I like The Squid and the Whale quite a bit more than this one. So yeah.
I did too. Davy Joe.
Yeah, I liked the movie. I liked it a lot, and I thought Ben Stiller. Are you all right there?
I'm not on camera, but yeah, the beer went awry.
You're not actually supposed to snort beer.
Davey is always had a drinking problem.
This is about to be a major issue here.
All right. What are we talking about?
Davy Joe, how is it once again you are the most sober of the three of us? That doesn't make any sense. You are drunk, Davey.
I feel like it's sort of a misnomer.
I don't know. You got to start living up to this. Otherwise, we're gonna have to come up with another name, another alliterative adjective for your name.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk a little bit about.
I'm here. I'm listening. I just need to clean up the beer that's all over. My phone's gonna get wet. This is pandemonium.
Excellent job, though. All right.
Well, you made me laugh, and then it went all over the place.
What did I say? What was funny? Do you remember?
Yeah,
Nope.
You said I liked it. The simplicity of it made me giggle.
It's a good movie. And I think that the Stiller is totally what drives this movie. And it got me because I felt so bad for this guy, even though he was kind of a jerk. Like you could tell he just couldn't get out of his own way, and he's just kind of just wired this way. And
that felt real, right? I mean, I think that's the thing about it.
It felt very real, and the sort of oblivious nature. When he's just like, well, what do people say about me? And then he's just kind of shocked. But it's clearly, I mean, he knows that there's a problem. So I just thought that Ben Stiller really sold it to me. I mean,
all right, so we've talked about the performances quite a bit. Let's talk now about the thing that feeds the performances. And I actually think the strength of the film, Ben Stiller's great, but I think it's actually something about this screenplay that provides the tools for these actors to get, for most of these actors to get done what they need. What are you guys thoughts on that in the screenplay? Like, are there things about the screenplay that you noticed and resonated with you?
No. What are you referring to specifically?
First of all, like I thought, the characterizations were all three-dimensional. On the page, I thought that the structure was good, and especially like we talk sometimes, and I think I brought it up in other sessions, but making a three-act structure invisible. Like, in other words, you don't want to feel plot point 1, plot point 2, etc. Everything in this film seemed to flow, but it did have structure. And I thought the dialogue was really strong. I'm thinking about the scene in Musso and Frank's when he's like, the youth is wasted on the young, and then he says, well, life is wasted on people, and it's there. I think that the scenes were very naturally drawn.
Yeah, and I think that the script was the thing that I noticed, and really it didn't occur to me until I spent some time thinking about the movie, is that there's a complexity to the backstory. His dealings with his ex-girlfriend and his bandmates and things of that nature that they get out in a way that it's not offensive. It doesn't bother you. It doesn't feel like blatant exposition. I think that the script really it could have gone a lot worse. And the fact that it stayed strong.
Noah Baumbach's would love that praise. It could have gone a lot worse.
Well, I just think it's risky. It's risky to set things up with so much backstory, and then to have to kind of work it in without it just being boring or annoying, or you know.
But it was interesting, and I felt like it hung over the movie in a effective way. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Past, was forever present, if you will.
Absolutely.
J Money.
Well, I was both bored and annoyed with the movie, so I guess I'm gonna have to depart from your opinions about this. Even though I will admit that I think it's a competent film and that it was well executed, and again, I think the performances really were the point of the film in general. I just was not taken with this film. I just could not care less about this film, honestly. It was fine, frankly, but you're talking about the screenplay. I really didn't notice anything special about the screenplay. I can see your point about the naturalness of how things flowed. Sure, that's true. It also dragged for me. So, in a natural way, it dragged, I guess is what I would say.
All right, so, well, you talked about the way it was executed. So how so? Like, what would you say was something that was well executed about? Because the next topic that I wanted to talk about is...
Oh, no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah, here we are again.
This keeps happening.
Yeah, maybe I just know too many of these kind of guys, you know? Like, it so made sense when the backstory ended up being that he was a failed musician in New York as a carpenter. I'm like, yep, I've seen you every day of my life, walking around.
and I don't know. Oh, I think he's back.
Is he back?
I mean, again, I'm not sure I ever left, but I mean, my question to you, J Money, was, what are some things to you that made you feel like it was well executed?
I do think that you're right, that things connected really well. I think that, I think you guys are talking a lot about the naturalness of how everything feels about the movie, and I will agree that there was a lot of... I think that it was... Look, as much as I'm complaining about this kind of movie, this is a really well-done version of this movie. I think that comes down to the performance.
So if you had seen this movie before these other Phantom movies that you're talking about, you might have really liked this.
If I was going to have to pick a movie in this vein, this is probably one of the top end ones of that kind of thing. If I was going to pick a movie about,
I wish you could come up with an example, because it just feels so like empty otherwise.
Yeah, that's fine.
So just like this movie gave you nothing, you're not giving us anything. So
I mean,
it all evens out.
Yeah, that seems fair.
Was there something about the direction that you noticed, Davey?
Not particularly. In the sense that I think that it's sort of a piece of writing played out and it's performance driven. I didn't nothing about the direction stood out to me, especially. I think he kind of just got out of the way and let his script do it, you know.
And in doing so, I mean, like, notice the amount of wide shots that I thought were prevalent throughout the film. Sort of like, not necessarily proscenium, like it didn't necessarily feel like a stage because it wasn't always wide shots that were presentational. But like a wide shot where you see the scope. Not the scope's probably the wrong word, but you see the whole scene from a distance, almost observational. And also, I think about the party. There was a party scene where he goes to a friend's house and has trouble, and there's this great crane out where he's sort of like left alone, and it's somewhat subtle, I would say. Like like what's great about a lot of the film, he doesn't really hit you over the head with too much, I think. And I remember that moment being particularly effective because it's not heavy-handed, but it also says something. The camera's pulling out, and he's sort of like alone amongst lots of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are some of the moments that I thought about. Let's talk a little bit about the issue of how it addressed mental illness. I talked a little bit about that in the beginning. So now that I'm re-bringing it up, what does this make you think about?
Well, I guess then we have to go back to the performances again about that. Is that okay, or is that off limits?
It's fine by me.
I think that, and again, going back to what we just said a minute ago, the naturalness of it, I think that it was amazing to see Ben Stiller become this neurotic. He's always kind of made himself a comic foil because of neuroticism, but in this case, he's actually becoming something that's very realistic to me, and something that's much more human in scale than he's ever done before. And it was really impressive to see. I mean, I really want to see him do more dramatic roles now because he has a fair amount of abilities to communicate that way.
Well, and I'm going to recommend Permanent Midnight to you based on that comment. Well, and it's funny because I go back to the screenplay, and again, I'm going to acknowledge you on Ben Stiller's performance and Rhys Ifans' performance, as being particularly strong. But when it comes to mental illness, I feel like again, it's a screenplay, and one of the choices that I thought was really interesting is how the other characters around him vacillate between empathy and rage.
Yeah.
And that to me was fascinating, and it felt real and honest. And like even his brother on the phone from a distance, all that those moments felt harsh, like they hurt you, but it also was like, yeah, I mean, like, and those people that are in our lives, it's very easy to get frustrated with them.
Yeah.
And it's like, because it's like David Joe said earlier, and at the risk of sounding harsh, like they need to get out of their own way, and sometimes maybe they need a kick in the ass. So, and the problems of the friends, I thought was a nice detail that elevated this movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with all those things you just said.
You heard that, everybody? He agreed.
Well,
everything I just said.
I'm agreeing again about this movie. we're just having completely different reactions to it on a whole, but that's okay.
Yeah, Davey, what about this mental illness thing?
I think that it definitely it went even a step further than what you're saying, because I could definitely relate to the people in the film and the way that they were dealing with him and reacting to him, but also it started to work on me. Like I was going back and forth between feeling just sort of empathy for him and also wanting to strangle him. So I thought it's just that's great writing. I mean that's what that is. It's
that
really,
is great writing. Thank you.
Yeah.
And and given all like this movie sort of has this stigma that hangs over it because of what at least in the independent film circles, because of what like all the personal drama that happened on the outskirts. But
yeah.
But now let's get to my major detractor. There's something in this movie that really frustrates me, and like I love Ben Stiller. We talked about it. I think Rhys Ifans is outstanding as Ivan, is good friend.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a major character in this film that I feel like is a miss, and
what a surprise!
And continues to be a miss. And this movie works in spite of Greta Gerwig, in my opinion. I feel like I see what she's trying to do, and she takes it too far. And as a director, Baumbach, and you could argue, it's a major guess, it's a major hypothesis, but you could argue he was infatuated to the point where he was blind to see, like the forced neuroticism. You know what I mean? That's sort of like, like I could see the person she's being, and it start at a point it felt real, but then the things that she was doing, the choices that she was making, kept feeling one or two steps too far, taking it past the point. It didn't feel real anymore. It felt like she was part of a different movie.
Is there a specific example you're thinking of?
I mean, in terms of choices, I mean, it's hard to give specific examples because it's in the body language. It's in, like an extra like stutter when she, very like it's in the small moments. With the way she'll like, start a line and turn around and start it again. I mean, like the things to, this character, you could argue she's sort of like wandering, aimless, lost, trying to find herself, all these things, and there are elements things that she did, like whether it be, like the way that she dressed or holding her sleeves and her hands in a very needy kind of way, like these things and these choices all felt real, but then there would be like one extra step, or like an extra stutter, like that felt forced and not real. It probably didn't help that she spoke after I saw the film and was the most annoying person that I've ever seen speak. That's a timer, but we have to finish talking about Greta Gerwig here, so because I feel like I'm alone on this. But Davey, you go first.
Yeah, you'll get no help from me. I thought she was great. She definitely. It's a tough part because she needs to have her own issues, but not detract. I mean, she's not supposed to be as mentally ill as he is, but she's definitely got her own issues.
But she pushes. That's exactly right, and I feel like she pushes that. I feel like that's where she goes wrong. Like she almost tries to match him in scenes, in a way that didn't feel right. So I mean, I'm agreeing with you, and I feel like that's where things went awry.
Yeah, all right. So we've identified the challenge, and I thought she met it, but you didn't think she did. And
yeah, I mean, I would say like to use a baseball term that only you would understand, Davey. That I would say it's like a foul tip performance. J Money, you also disagree with me, I presume.
I have no idea what that means, by the way. But well, what I would say, JB, is that I think that of all the movies I've seen Greta Gerwig in now, it's clear to me that she plays Greta Gerwig every time. She's kind of in the same vein. So I think that either you like her...
And that might be coloring my opinion as well, for sure.
So I think that either you like her and what she does or you don't. And I know that you don't. I'm okay with it. I didn't have a problem with her performance. But I also don't think that she was kind of the star of the show here either way. So... I'll give and take it. I can see where you're going. I guess I don't think
and quite frankly, the screenplay sort of balances their time. Like Robert Greenberg doesn't come on screen until 20 minutes in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I just think between the two of them, Ben Stiller completely blows her out of the water on this.
Right. Sure. And he's the titular character. But all right, guys, we have to go. We're running late again, so the classic discussion is probably going to be late. The classic, though, that we're about to talk about is right behind me, Grand Hotel, coming up in about 5 minutes probably. We're going to be a little late, start probably 6:02 Pacific, 9:02 Eastern. But next week's Indie, which is going to be November 23rd, we're not going to tell you right now, but my tidbit right now is an Avenger becomes an alien, and that's my tidbit, Indie Spotlight, November 23rd. But in 5 minutes, classic movie discussion, our most popular segment, and it's going to be Grand Hotel from 1932. We'll see you guys very shortly.